The third episode on the uni.
On the uni channel.
Yeah.
Let's try to make it nice.
Yeah, we should invite guests next episode.
Working on it.
Yeah, nice. So I predict that a lot of guests will come to here. But do you anticipate this? Today we will talk about anticipation, prediction in the human mind. What do they mean as words, as a predictive mind, and what is or what are the two systems of the anticipatory?
Prediction versus anticipation.
Yeah.
Right? So do I predict that we will have guests? Yes. I predict that we will have it, but I have not really anticipated their presence here yet. So I have not prepared for that really mentally.
What does it mean?
So in a sense, when you talk, it seems that our minds are very anticipatory. That's what I have written about a lot over the last decades too, actually, by now. I'm getting old.
No, you are.
But the point is really that prediction is something that we all the time do. We can predict things, how they develop, how they unfold in our minds, and how the world unfolds. But anticipation is what we do with these predictions.
Okay.
Anticipation is really that we predict something will happen, and that's why we behave a little bit differently than we would usually behave.
So, prediction is a cognitive ability.
Both of them are cognitive abilities.
Yeah, but like cognitive on mental level. Like we just like mentally predict something is gonna happen.
Sure, yes.
But anticipation is something to prepare the action for.
Exactly, you can say it this way, right? Yes.
Yeah.
So anticipation really is a term that emphasizes that you are preparing for the future. You anticipating the future, not only predicting it, but also getting ready for it in one way or the other. So and this can have many facets to it. You can just predict how your motion of your body feels, what you are doing all the time, and that's why you are not surprised how it feels when you move your body, because you know how it feels.
Okay.
In fact, schizophrenics unfortunately have a little bit of issues with that, partially, and so it feels to them weird, partially, when they move their own body. And they can, for example, try to tickle themselves to a certain extent, which standard humans cannot really do, right? You can try, right? But it doesn't really work. Why? Because you anticipate the effect of your own motion, and you sense this effect, this tactile sensation on your wherever, and thus you cancel out the prediction and the reafference, as it's called in psychology, the effect of this motion, and thus you're not surprised, you're not tickly about it.
Yeah. But like, so I have a silly question. Like, if a friend comes to me and say I have schizophrenia, so I would say like tickle yourself. This is like the pre-real test.
Well, unfortunately, it's I mean, there are lots of types of schizophrenia, and so it's not that it works with everybody. But if you have a friend, you could. And you get along really well, maybe you want to see if it actually is tickling for him.
Tickle test.
The tickle test.
The tickle test.
You could do it, yes.
I don't have it. Nice. Yeah, so like, why the mind, the human mind, has the urgent to predict and anticipate? What is the root out of this mechanism of our cognition?
I think the most important part why we do this is to be more flexible in our behavior. is to be more adaptive in our complex worlds, in our social worlds, where I cannot interact with every other individual in the same way, and where under different circumstances, everything else being equal, I still need to interact differently with the world. And that, as a result, I cannot just always follow my habits. I cannot just do what I regularly would want to do. And rather, I predict what I usually would do, and then I evaluate this prediction, if it's going the right way, if I want these effects that I'm predicting to happen, and in some circumstances I do not want them to happen. And then I need to look for alternatives, and that means I'm starting to plan alternatives, and because I anticipated an effect that I do not want to occur, and so I look for alternatives and be more happy with those anticipations.
So it's like a mechanism which is part of the avoiding the punishments and seeking for the rewards.
Seeking for rewards in the end. I mean, if you think about it, right? Our whole ability to predict, the reason for it is only to improve our behavior in our world, right? To improve our interactions with our world. It doesn't matter. There's no reason whatsoever to just re-represent the world in our head if it's not useful to us. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I told you so in Arabic. I said طيب. Okay. If we don't have experience, so like if you want to protect something, we need to have experience out of it.
That's true.
If we don't have experience,
right,
what is the mechanism that undergoes?
Well, it starts all from a reactive, reflexive behavior, it seems. The so-called Ideomotor principle in psychology suggests, right, that we are starting with mere reflexive like motions, stretching our limbs just out of physical and muscle growing properties and so forth. And then we realize the effects that we can induce with our body. And that leads us to predictive models, the ability to predict. And that then leads us more and more to also act in a goal-directed manner, because later on we then might want exactly that feeling again to occur, and so we can execute that motor behavior that elicits a particular feeling. This was very psychological now, actually, how it's started originally.
But like computer scientists and people who work on robotics always like using now cognitive science. It's now the most popular
to a certain extent
science.
Right.
Yeah, so like cognitive psychology or in general cognitive science. Yeah, so but like it starts with Ideomotor principle, then goes to the prediction.
Then you go to predictions.
Then to anticipation.
Not really. Then it's going hand in hand, really, right? So because your anticipations guide your further model development and your further predictive capabilities, and that goes and grows. And
okay, nice. When you told me Ideomotor, okay, like we are talking 5 hours or 3 hours every day, like, and we are talking science all the time, and this is good for me. But like audience don't know Ideomotor. It's like, what does it mean, Ideomotor?
Well, it essentially means that yourself becomes real in a sense. Yourself, you are learning first about your own body, how yourself, your body, can interact with the world, how your own motor behavior that you can elicit by desiring changes in the world essentially is what you can do. So is yourself basically is that entity that manipulates the world that you can voluntarily control. And that's why it's this Ideomotor thing, that it's basically yourself that develops basically, right? And it's also very interesting to notice that the links between your motor behavior and the effects on the environment, the most immediate effects on the environment are directly sensed by your own body. So if you stretch your arm, right, there are tendons and all, and there are sensors that basically indicate that your arm is more stretched than before.
Mm-hmm.
You also visually see your arm stretching, and also that you predict. But the visual modality is a little bit more indirect. The feeling directly of how much your muscle is stretched is the most immediate feedback. And this is what you learn first. And this really embodies yourself. These sensory motor loops that you can control directly. If I then start to control this mug, right, then it's even more indirect, because it's this mug and it has particular properties and behaves in a certain way when I interact with it. So my forward model, my predictive abilities to know how the mug behaves, develops later, still really early in infancy, right? But later than the feeling of my own body, the knowledge how my own motor behavior affects my own body. And that is the primary knowledge that every infant gains first. And this enables it to know that it has an own body that it can control, and then it starts to learn it can control the world or manipulate the world via its body.
So this is like abstract description for the idiomotor, but I will give you an example and you explain it.
Okay.
I don't know how to drive a bicycle,
Mm-hmm.
and I start to learn or to drive it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm learning now. So
right now.
No, I understand. Yeah. I drive. I bike.
Can you do it?
I bike.
So anyway, right. So I mean, what does it mean that you learn to drive a bicycle? You have seen others riding a bicycle in principle, and when you sit on it and it gets first, there's two skills that you need to learn to ride a bicycle: keeping the balance and getting the pedals right and pedaling, right? Mm-hmm. That's why usually it's helpful if a child already has a balance bike first, mm-hmm. and so it knows the balancing part, and it doesn't need to do the pedaling and the balancing mm-hmm. part. Mm-hmm. It's also useful for a child to have a balancing bike and also a tricycle with pedals, right? Yeah. Because then it has learned both hard parts separately already, so it only needs to put them together later on, which makes it again easier to learn riding the bicycle. What you are though learning in the end is to controlling the stability of speed. Also braking is a challenge.
And the sound of the wheels.
The sound, but it's really probably mainly that feeling of balance that you have, and that you don't hurt yourself while you are doing the bicycle riding, while you're trying to use the pedals, right? And you slip off sometimes. I mean, I taught 3 children bicycle riding, so it is a skill to have, and it takes, depending on the child, it takes longer.
The idiomotor principle is responsible for.
Well, the idiomotor principle really emphasized originally that term, really, that's very basic, but you can project it, I think, on the bicycle riding, and there, in the sense, right, if you think about it, the bike somewhat becomes part of your body then. Because you can control the bicycle exactly like you control your body. Yeah. It's exactly like when you learn riding a car, right? Yeah. And you are learning to a certain extent. Some can do it better, others have a little bit more problem, but you know the extent of the car, right? Yeah, I know. And if you hit something with your car, it hurts yourself to a certain extent. Yeah. Not only financially, but also it feels really ouch,
it feels, right? My knee, my right knee hurts.
It's like as if it was part of you.
I have a good example of the bike also. Like I know how to bike without hands.
Okay.
I don't like no need.
I also love to control riding without hands sometimes.
Yeah. Right? But I move it with my body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is why. Steer, right? This is why it's really part of our bodies.
Absolutely, And there are other studies, right, that show that tools become part of your body to a certain extent. There are psychological studies that show that if you use this tool and you're really busy using it, and suddenly there's a light flash on the tool in front of the tool, at the top of the tool, it feels for you like a little bit as if your finger is touched. Yeah. You can show this in animals. They even did some single cell recording stuff where neurons are active, that are active when the hand of a monkey is touched. But when it uses the rake and there's in front and there's a light flash, then also that neuron fires, basically.
If there is a light flash on in my laptop, my heart hurts. Please don't.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah, you don't want that. So, like, Ideomotor is a principle that help us to manipulate tools and navigate the environment subconsciously. So we can then focus on other things. And because usually the mind or the brain consumes the most of the energy. So if you are not focusing or giving attention to this task, doing habitually, then you are just minimizing the energy that is being consumed.
The more things become habitual to you, the less energy your brain needs to spend on doing them. And the more automatic they become, essentially. And that though means, what does this really mean? It means that for any sensory situation, when you're on your bike and balancing, you essentially know, without thinking about it, what's your motor response to this sensory sensation to keep in balance and keep driving. You don't have to think about it, you don't have to think about alternatives or try your conscious mind to think, oh, I should lean to the right? But you just do it.
It's just like this.
Exactly. It's just.
Yeah, nice.
Like dancing.
So is it possible that a human being can train the idiomotor principle? Or there is any way that we can work on it, or?
Sure. I mean, we are working on it all the time, actually, right?
Yeah, but unconsciously.
The whole time you behave, you speak, you do anything. I mean, it's essentially that exercising the sensory motor dynamics that you're controlling yourself. But if you become a professional in a musician or a sports professional, or also in some jobs where you have to do a lot of handiwork, or also just simply on the computer and typing, but all these sensory motor dynamics that are controlled by your body, is it soccer playing, is it playing the cello or the piano, whatever, this over time, right, the skill it develops more and more, and you essentially use this kind of idiomotor principle to train yourself to things become more and more natural, automatic, and so you become better and better and do things faster and with less effort. And that less effort enables you then also to look a little bit further into the future. If your models are really sure how things progress, you can look deeper.
We will talk about this now. So you don't have an experience, like when we were infant now, no experience, then children, then teenagers, then even adults, 70 years old could study physics. Yeah, so we always are learning new stuff and having experience all the time, new experience. So now, okay, idiomotor comes to the scene, solve it, take it from the table, put it in our world model. Go. And then continue our life. And in the future, we face something related, like I'm biking, and then suddenly there is one crazy bikers trying to crash me, hits me or something. And then here we need to take it from the habitual meta
level
or unconscious level to the
Okay, to the conscious level,
to
right?
conscious
Or,
level.
I mean, your meta level, that's also part of the prediction or part of the
Yeah.
anticipation, and also you anticipate the whole time the developments, your sensory experiences, the sensory signals that you should get from your environment. And if these sensory signals suddenly change, right, if they suddenly totally off, you're surprised. Right? You're like, whoa, what's happening, right? And that means like you're not only whoa, but you usually immediately direct it to the source of that difference, right? To the source of that error signal that basically says, hey, your prediction went totally wrong. So there was some cause in the environment, something that you didn't expect at all. You better process the reason why you didn't expect this and find out what's the reason so you're prepared next time.
Yeah, yeah. So like, let's go back to the bike fight. And now we need to be more conscious and aware of what is happening around you. So then you need to anticipate. And then the anticipatory behavior comes to the scene.
It comes to in that sense. Well, you mean the social challenge now in the bike fight, basically. So if you have that second person, right, that you navigate with, right, or you can also think about couples dancing or
couple dancing,
soccer playing, right,
or
where you shaking hands, even exactly like expecting this interaction.
Another
unfold.
Agent, you don't have any control over their actions, and you need to interact two actions together so nothing can hurt.
Exactly.
Hurts
So that's a very subtle, partially skill, right? That you really read out of minimal signs from the other person, right? Be it where they look, be it how tiny motions unfold, right? That you read out of this their current intentionality, their current behavior intentions, and thus their expected motor behavior that they will induce and activate. That is how they behave their body, move their body. And out of this anticipation, you again can adjust your own in a fight. It's opposing the other one, or protecting yourself, or seeing the weak spot at a certain point in time, right? In a dance, it's exactly moving along or guiding the other person, right? In a soccer match, you might want to fool the person, the opponent player, right? That you pretend you go via the right side, but then you see exactly when the other person steps to the right, and so you flop, go through the left, so, right? And that's
what is the mechanism that governs this anticipation?
Well, it is the anticipation. That is the mechanism.
The forward.
It's
anticipatory behavior.
You have to have two skills unfolding here. The first one is the prediction, the ability to really read out of minimalistic signals what is going to unfold, which is in fact our task the whole time. When we ride the bicycle, we also don't have very strong signals that we are leaning too far to the right or so, right? But we're using these little signals to balance the whole time. And in a social context with the bicycle fight, you have just the signals from the other person, and there, as I said, the hard part is that your predictive model still needs to include or infer the likely intentionality of the other person, so you can better predict which motor commands the other person is going to issue at any point in time or in this dynamic interaction. And so that's your predictive model, right? And then you have the anticipation that takes the predictions and select where to predict further in depth and use this to adjust your own behavior. The second skill, this inversion of the anticipation leading to your own behavior adjustment, that is another skill that is involved.
I was reading the chapter 5 of your book, How the Mind Becomes to Being. And I was reading about the forward anticipatory behavior and the inverse anticipatory behavior. And I found out that like if we are interacting with an agent, we need the forward because it's like changing and taking anticipation on real time. This joke, like someone is like giving you his hand and then doing this like to make jokes. Like so like then if you are like fast in reaction, like mentally you would like react the same, but other people like maybe they are slower than you will say like oh like so they don't, I don't know what is the English word of this, like the fast reaction. I don't know, like سريع البديهة.
Reflex, right?
Yeah, the reflection. Yeah, you fast in reflection. So like it's about anticipatory and so like the reward is like while you are interacting with an agent, and the inverse, a stable environment that there's no agent, you don't know what this agent will do. So you can't predict everything and just act on the anticipation that you receive.
I mean, that's why it's also so hurtful or annoying if some person does this thing, right? Because you have a clear anticipation that maybe even surprised, like, oh, I don't really like this person, but okay, he wants to shake my hand, so all right, let's put peace to it, right? And then, because the big arrow signal, right, leads you to the inference, why did this person do it? And a disappointment, still an ass after all.
I will never give my hand
to
again.
This person.
Yeah, so like I read a paper and like there was one sentence which is that the predictive mind theory is the most now popular and famous theory in the cognitive science.
I would wonder if everybody would agree to this, but I would hope so, because
clearly
our predictive mind is a predictive mind. We are mentally, we are not only in the present, but we are partially in the future. We probe the future, not only the immediate ideomotor future of my hand motion, moving, or my manipulating the cup, right? But also in the future of my role in society, what I want to accomplish in life to a certain extent, where do I get the next meal from? All these things are part of ourselves. My friends that I care about, right? My family situation and my family members that I care about. All these things are part of us, right? And are latently in every here and now active in us and lead to us to predict and anticipate on various levels and in various domains and contexts.
One of the real problems that people face in their life, in their daily life, words that they regret saying them because they don't predict the result of the words. How we can be more wise and train our predictive mind to at least not regretting saying anything or losing our opportunity because we say something stupid. Oh, I didn't mean this. You tell me you are asshole. What does it mean else?
Yeah, difficult to say how to really train this further. I am not an expert in this. I've never tried teaching others how to do this. There's definitely a lot in the personality of every one of us. Some are just more reflective and think a little bit more about the effects of their words and how others might interpret these words. Others are just maybe more self-confident or also not as reflective, and they then maybe more often tap into the situation that they would have preferred not to say something. It's difficult.
My uncle once told me, like, when we went out and I forgot to bring something, and he told me, like, an advice. Mother, always have 1 minute break at the door. Stand and say 1 minute break and think about what are you going to do now. I'm leaving to meet my uncle and I have to bring this with me. It's not with me, then I go back. So like 1 minute break, is it a good rule?
It sounds like a very good rule, in fact. Yeah, I like it. Yeah. I mean, we see this in everyday life. It's always interesting, right? I have this often that I go out of my house and then I realize I forgot something.
Yeah.
But I was in the house and was trying to desperately think that I don't forget anything. But once I stepped out of the house, I suddenly realized I forgot something already.
Okay, yeah.
Why is this? Because when we're out of the house, we are not in this house context anymore, but we are in the kind of travel context to go to that place.
Yeah, yeah.
And so suddenly that place where we're going to, and these people and what I need for these people there and what I was going to do there is much more accessible to us than when we're still in the house.
Yeah.
Because we still have to do the traveling in between. But if we are on traveling readiness, we can anticipate that where we are going to and can think better about it.
So the mind try to minimize the energy.
Because it predicts somewhat in a sequential manner. It's difficult to really project yourself mentally totally somewhere else, but you can practice this, of course. You can, I never managed so far really to do this well, right? But I mean, sometimes it works, right? That you are still in your house and you think, okay, what am I going to do over there? Or maybe, like what your uncle said, right? What are the people that I'm visiting now? Or what is my task over there?
Unfold the context.
And then you realize, okay, I need this and this and this for that. Right? But often we are just too busy and we live in the moment and we get out of the house and then our mind is automatically over there where we want to get to, and then you realize, I need this. Yeah? And sometimes our minds are not as anticipatory and we drive all the way and only then we realize we have it, not that what we need.
But
right?
what would be the advice for the harmful words? Think is not enough. Maybe predict your own reaction for the word that you want to say.
I mean, the skill is really to anticipate the other people's perception of your words. And this is taxing. This is because you not only need to predict the dynamics of something, but you need to predict the dynamics of something from the perspective of the other person. It's like a counterfactual nearly, or an alternative factual.
Perspective taking.
It's a perspective taking.
Yeah.
It's the context of the other person and the interpretation dynamics of that other person. And that is certainly a limited skill in all of us.
Yeah, indeed.
And some are again better, some are even worse, but it is taxing because you need mentally move away from your own self and take this perspective of another person and simulate predictive processes and anticipate the effects. And that is more taxing than just being in yourself's minds.
Good. I know that AI is very bad in reasoning, but I have heard also that AI systems are very good in the prediction and anticipation. Is it a rumor?
Interesting. We should look that up maybe and report in one of the next sessions on this. There's so much studies out there now. What can say is that large language models now, but also other predictive systems, right, are in the sense they are trained autoregressively, so they are trained to really play out predictive dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
So that they can do, but because they never really evaluate if these predictions are consistent with a bigger world model or physically plausible or so, they sometimes then just take the wrong exit, so to say, and which happens rarely, but they will not realize. But if they have to reason about it, the model is missing, and so that gets really difficult for them.
Is this related to the weather apps?
To the weather apps?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't see the relation really.
It predicts the weather.
I mean, the weather apps are autoregressively predicting the weather.
Yeah.
The current nowcasting weather apps usually still just do optical flow, so they just predict the dynamics as they have been on the last 5, 15, 20 minutes, whatever, and project this in the future. That's why when you look at the app, if it's before the current point in time, if there's a lot going on in the atmosphere, like thunderstorms around or so, right, you see a lot popping up and doing this and this, and then if you're on now time, suddenly it goes smooth, goes in some direction, and then you can see, okay, a big rain area is coming my way. That is plausible, but you will not know where the thunderstorm pops up.
Like we have a project about weather in our lab, and you are so interesting in solving.
It would be so useful, right?
Yeah.
I always thought, why can't we? But this is apparently, and it is really the hardest part to really know where the so-called convective structure then unfolds. That suddenly the wind goes vertically upwards, which leads to hail, for example, right? That is when the wind really fast rises upwards, humid air goes high up, where it's much colder, it freezes, and then the hail comes down, right? And this is extremely difficult.
From my experience, and with like weather apps, they are all primitive.
Yeah, I mean, if you think 30 years back, or then they're not primitive. Yeah, they're amazingly good.
He's
right?
fighting back for his beloved project. Yeah. So my last question is, like some people, it's rare to find one of these people who can walk in the street and say it's gonna rain. And they are so experienced, I think, and they really smell, feel, and like hear the storm.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and this is also, I think, it's a prediction mind or predictive mind.
It seems animals are partially better, indeed, to predict.
Sometimes I can smell the rain. I have a little
know
bit.
What you're
like,
meaning.
I have it. I'm animal, like we, humans, like all we have. But my question is, why? First, do you trust these applications, and why are like these people are more accurate than these applications?
I think the main reason probably is that the applications don't have they don't have a nose, and they don't have the nose right there where the person is. Or any other sensors that would be really useful for that matter.
Yeah, and they don't have the experience with the rain itself.
They do have a lot of data on rain. Now, if you think of the large language, the weather prediction models, deep learning weather prediction models, also numerical weather prediction models, right? They try to simulate the physics, but they do not necessarily have all the local measurements that would be required to have this hunch that a really big storm is gonna come right my way.
Yeah.
So I can believe that sometimes these weather frogs, right, that basically smell that big rain is approaching, might know it if it's over the next 10, 15, 20 minutes, 5 minutes for sure. They know it earlier than the weather apps if it's locally unpredictably developed, because they have the direct sensory experience.
Yeah.
And the weather apps don't have the access everywhere, right? They don't have sensors everywhere.
Is it possible in the future to have?
I mean, it will definitely still improve. It's clear that the weather apps, the deep learning systems that are out there, they are not using all the data that's available, and you can even make more data available in the near future. So in all likelihood, these things will still get better.
Do you trust these systems?
Well, I mean, they will never be fully reliable as everything, but they will get better and better, and so we will trust in them more and more. Because it's the best forecast that we have, right? I mean, you have nothing better, except for your voodoo man, maybe. So maybe. I mean, if you want to trust in such a person, it will probably also be useful for very local knowledge, how things develop really locally there. Yeah. But as I said, the weather apps will get better still on the very short term, but also on the mid-range term, weeks, 1 week, maximally 10 days, 2 weeks. And then the researchers are working on seasonal, sub-seasonal forecasts as well. So you don't really know exactly if it will rain this day or that day, but you know basically that there will be some rain in 2 months. That's currently not possible. Really.
It's not possible, yeah. I know I joke, maybe like... it's appropriate for this topic. Like a leader of a tribe wants to become legend, and then he tells his people that this winter is gonna be cold. Gather wood. Then like after 1 month after gathering, like he decided to make it more like then tell them. Then he tells them like gather more and more. Then like. He watched now at the night he's watching the television, the forecast, and then like the presenter says the winter is gonna be so harsh. Then he wants to be more like appreciated. Then he said like gather a lot. This winter is the worst in the world. Then they start to gather a lot. Then like the same night. At the evening, like the presenter say, it's gonna be crazy winter. Be prepared, everyone. And then he was like he was shocked. He wants now to know why they are the same like prediction. Then he called the presenter, and the presenter say, and then he told him he asks him, how do you know? He says like, I saw the tribes are gathering a lot of foods, and it should be crazy because they know everything about winter and weather.
Yeah, so where we got our sources from, the self-fulfilling prophecies, you have to be very careful about.
Yeah, this is like also like prophecy and prediction, also like the same. Like there are people are special, right? Yeah, but like why they are special? I mean, this is the last question for sure. Why there are people special in prediction, seeing the future or the events than others?
Oh, I don't know if they're really... I mean, I don't think they're voodoo magic people that can see more than others, but I mean, some people are somewhat very skilled to see precisely the signals that they need to read to predict the future, and then can also play around with it, right? If you think about, for example, good showmasters, right? That, or like musicians that gave fantastic concerts, they apparently really have a feeling how the crowd reacts to their behaviors, right? To exactly, they read out, now the crowd needs a little bit of this, and then it gives them this. and he sees, the crowd really likes it, right? And so I give them some more, or the crowd doesn't like it so much, but they want a little bit more melancholy, and then I go this way. And so if you can read this, right, then it's this circle again that's playing out, and it's little subtle signals, and some people are really good in reading these signals,
Yeah, so
and others not.
Yeah, there are two components now. The first one is being experienced, so like train and train and train, do this, the thing, that the skill that you want a lot,
Right.
and the second, be aware, like full mindedness. You know this this term, like
Mindfulness.
Yeah, mindfulness. Full mind.
Mindfulness.
Mindfulness, like be full aware of your sensations, like train to see more, to hear more, to
Foster your awareness, right?
smell more. Yeah.
But that is a skill that can be trained probably to a certain extent. Also good to take this minute sometime, right? And think about what comes next, or what's relevant right now, which persons will be present, and such components. But there's also this inherent, seemingly somewhat inborn skill that some people have much more than others.
Yeah.
That is really about reading the signals, and without thinking too much about it, without needing to train this too much, it just comes natural to them.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure, Muda. Take care.
Bye bye. Nice end.